Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a text that has, well, really captivated minds for millennia with Ching.
It really has.
I mean, imagine being stuck on a desert island, only one book allowed. Michael Crichton. You pick this one.
That says something, doesn't it? And then you've got Eckhart Tolle calling it one of the most profound spiritual books ever written.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what gets me is it's up there with texts like the Bible is one of the most translated books globally, but it got there without, a big religious institution actively promoting it.
It's an extraordinary testament to its universal appeal, isn't it?
Totally.
When you first pick it up, it looks like, well, not much. A thin little book, just 81 really concise chapters.
Right.
But packed inside those very few words is what people describe as a universe of wisdom. It really manages to say the most with the least.
Yeah.
And it invites this lifelong journey, Every time you read it, something new clicks, often something quite deep.
Okay, so let's get into this journey. The author, supposedly, Lao Tzu.
Yeah.
He wasn't a prophet, right? Not a messiah figure.
No, not at all. A philosopher.
A philosopher, yeah. And his teachings are surprisingly practical, aren't they? Like a real down-to-earth guide for living with, grace and peace, joy even.
Precisely. It's very grounded.
So our mission today, let's try and uncover some of that enduring wisdom, explore its fascinating, almost legendary origins.
The story itself is amazing.
And most importantly, figure out how these timeless insights can actually be applied in your life right now. Why does this ancient text still resonate so much? Let's find out.
Okay, so the story of how this text even came to be, it's almost as famous as the book itself. And it tells you a lot about its nature.
Yeah.
It starts back in the Zhou dynasty. Things were getting pretty chaotic. The dynasty was declining. War felt like it was just around the corner.
A real time of unrest.
Exactly.
Huh.
And Lao Tzu, who was the royal archivist at the time, he decides it's time to leave. He's heading out, apparently riding on an ox.
Just riding off on an ox. And gets to Hanggu Pass.
Yep, Hanggu Pass. And there he meets Commander Yingxi. Now, Yingxi was known for having this deep intuition.
Okay.
And he just senses something incredibly unique about this, unassuming old guy on an ox. He recognizes him as Lao Tzu, the famous old master.
Wow.
And he basically begs him, makes this urgent request, please write down your wisdom before you disappear.
So hold on, Lao Tzu, the royal archivist, is surrounded by scrolls and records. He hadn't written his own philosophy down yet.
Well, that's the interesting part. Despite being the keeper of all this knowledge, Lao Tzu apparently believed that books are dead things.
The dead things.
Yeah. His view was that true wisdom isn't just collecting information, reading words. It's about applying those words to your life, living it.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
For him, the Tao was about returning to simplicity. So it was only because Yingxi was so insistent, so passionate about it, that Lao Tzu stopped. And he drew on this incredible memory and deep understanding he had, pulled from King Wu's massive library, plus core ideas, common sayings, his own advice he'd given the king.
And condensed all of that
into these 81 concise chapters, the Tao Te Ching.
That's quite something. To boil down so much into this little gem, a spiritual diamond, really.
It really is. And his parting words to Yingxi, they just hit home, don't they? He says, this gift is a dead thing too. Make it come alive by putting what it says into actual practice.
Wow.
When you do so, you will see me in the Tao.
Right.
It's just striking. Neither of them could possibly have known the impact that one meeting, that one act of writing would have.
And that whole story at Hanggu Pass, it really helps clear up something important, doesn't it? A common misunderstanding.
It really does, which is
that Lao Tzu founded Taoism.
Ah, yes, exactly. He didn't. The concept of the Tao, this idea of a guiding way or a fundamental principle that was already deeply woven into Chinese thought for thousands of years before Lao Tzu. We're talking maybe 2,500 years ago for him.
That's crucial, because the text itself mentions ancient masters, right? The people who were ancient even to Lao Tzu.
Absolutely. Figures like Huang Ti, the Yellow Emperor, and Fu Si, they lived over 4,700 years ago, more than 2 millennia before Lao Tzu.
Wow.
And they were already linked with these, proto-Taoist ideas. Fu Si is often credited with originating the whole yin and yang concept.
So knowing about these much older roots, how does that help us appreciate what Lao Tzu actually did?
Well, it lets us see him less as an originator and more as a brilliant synthesizer, an articulator.
Okay.
His goal wasn't necessarily brand new ideas, but to summarize, to distill, maybe elevate teachings that were already there. King Wu's library was a source, sure, but the wisdom was ancient.
Right.
And it didn't stop with him either. Over the next, 7 centuries or so, other sages kept adding to it, refining his work. There were multiple early versions floating around.
It kept evolving.
It did. Until about 1,800 years ago, a scholar named Wang Bi kind of pulled it all together, consolidated things, and finalized the compilation that we basically recognize today.
So the Tao Te Ching is really like a collaborative work across centuries, continuously polished.
In a very real sense, yes.
Which I guess feeds into that whole modern academic debate. Was Lao Tzu one guy or maybe composite figure like Homer?
That debate exists.
But for people actually following Taoist principles, does that historical question mark or the fact it was collaborative even matter? Does it lessen the impact?
Not really, not in the slightest, actually. For Taoists, it's always been about the message, not the messenger.
Okay.
The power, the relevance. It comes from the principles themselves, not whether one specific person wrote it down at one specific time. That focus on the wisdom itself is very Taoist.
Gotcha.
But Lao Tzu's work, his articulation, it was definitely a catalyst. It kind of sparked two main paths, which sometimes overlap. Philosophical Taoism that's more secular, observing natural laws, the flow of things. And then religious Taoism, which developed, its own doctrines, rituals, even deities.
One of the things that strikes me most about the Tao is just how flexible it is, how inclusive. When you first hear Tao, it might sound really specific, maybe even esoteric, but in ancient China, it was just a normal word, right? Tao just meant the way.
Exactly. A very generic term. You could apply it to anything. You could talk about the Tao of cooking, the Tao of archery, even.
The Tao of Jesus or the Tao of science.
Precisely. Because it's just a universal label. It points to the observation that reality, deep down, seems to operate with a certain way, an inherent order.
Okay.
And that way includes everything. A Christian might see it as God's plan. An atheist might call it the laws of physics. Tao is just this very broad, non-dogmatic label you can stick on that underlying reality.
So it gets beyond those rigid either-or boxes we like to put things in. That's really powerful. It makes asking, do you believe in the Tao, sound kind of silly, like asking, do you believe in gravity?
Yeah, or do you believe in your own height? It just is, regardless of belief.
So what does that inherent sort of transcendent quality mean for how the Tao interacts with other traditions? Does it just absorb them?
In a way, yeah. It explains why something like Buddhism, which actually has a very different focus suffering versus the Tao's kind of carefree wandering ideal.
Right. They seem quite different.
Why it was accepted so easily in China. It wasn't seen as competition. It was just another way to express the Tao.
Okay.
And similarly with Confucianism, we in the West often pit Taoism against Confucianism, but ancient sages mostly saw them as complementary.
How so?
Well, Confucianism gave you a framework for society, for ethical behavior, how to act outwardly. Taoism offered this deeper, more personal dive into existence, nature, the inner world, both useful, different tools for different jobs, kind of.
I find that really liberating, this idea that just by being actively interested in the Tao, you're essentially part of the tradition. You're a Tao cultivator.
Absolutely. The door is wide open.
It's not a person, right?
Yeah.
The Tao isn't some deity sitting on a cloud.
No, definitely not personified. It's the ultimate principle, sometimes symbolized by energy, boundlessness, like that serene, moo-light image you often see associated with it. Infinite potential. And ultimately, that's the point, isn't it? The Tao Te Ching isn't just philosophy for the sake of it. It's meant to offer wisdom you can actually use day to day.
Right. Let's go back to that analogy you mentioned. Existence is a forest.
Right. Existence is the forest that's the big Tao of existence. Your goals, your dreams, they're like a mountain in the distance.
Okay.
The Tao Te Ching, then, is like a map, not just of the forest itself, but helping you choose your specific path, your personal Tao through existence to get to that mountain with, ideally, wisdom and grace.
Okay, let's really dig into some specific chapters then. Chapter 1 starts with that massive paradox. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao.
It's foundational.
We kind of get the idea of things being ineffable. But what's the deeper implication here? Does it mean we should stop trying to intellectualize everything?
I think that's a big part of it, yes. It draws this crucial line between the nameless essence, the ultimate origin, the mystery you can't quite grasp, and the named manifestations.
The mother of myriad things.
Yeah.
The stuff we see and touch.
Exactly, the physical universe. But here's the really interesting bit. It says the unity of these two, the seamless link between the unseen and the seen. That's the mystery of mysteries.
The doorway to all wonders.
Right. So it's saying you can't just think your way into understanding the Tao. It demands moving from just concepts to actually feeling it, living it. It's a caution against mistaking the map for the actual territory, you know?
That definitely reframes things. And Chapter 8 offers such a simple, powerful metaphor: water.
Ah, water. Yes. The ultimate symbol for the Tao in many ways.
Why water?
Well, think about it. Water benefits everything it touches, doesn't it? Without fighting or competing. It adapts, takes the shape of whatever holds it, and it always seeks the lowest place, the humble position.
Right.
So the text urges us, be like water. Cultivate humility. Have deep insight, like still water reflecting clearly. Be kind without expecting anything back. Be true to your word. Be incredibly adaptable. And avoid contention.
If you act like water.
You're basically beyond reproach. You navigate life incredibly effectively.
It's amazing how it keeps flipping our usual ideas about power, like water's humility being strength. And Chapter 11 does it again, right? With emptiness.
Yes. That's another brilliant one. It challenges our assumption that stuff, substance, is what's useful.
How does it make that case?
Yeah.
That emptiness creates function.
It uses these simple examples. Think of a wheel hub. It's the empty space in the middle that lets the axle turn, right? That makes the wheel work.
Okay.
Or a clay pot. It's useful because it's empty inside, so it can hold things. A room needs the empty space between the walls, the open door, to actually be livable.
Ah, I see.
So it suggests the Tao's own infinite capacity, its ability to contain everything, actually comes from its profound emptiness. It's a reminder that space, receptivity, potential, that's just as vital as solid stuff. And the book doesn't just look outward, it looks inward too. Chapter 13 hits hard. The greatest misfortune is the self. That sounds confrontational.
It does, doesn't it? But it points to something universal. Lao Tzu says, favor and disgrace make one fearful. Our ego, that sense of me and mine, makes us constantly chase praise and run from criticism.
Creates anxiety.
Exactly, a cycle of turmoil. He identifies this attachment to the self as the root of so much trouble. But, and this is crucial, he's not saying get rid of the ego entirely.
Oh.
Not them. He suggests a balanced self-worth. He says, one who values the self as the world can be given the world. One who loves the self as the world can be entrusted with the world.
Explain that.
It's about expanding your sense of value to include everything, the whole world, instead of just focusing narrowly on your own personal wins and losses. A much bigger, more stable sense of self.
A profound shift.
Okay, speaking of misfortune, Chapter 46 uses that horse analogy to contrast peace and greed. That's pretty vivid.
Oh, it really paints a picture. When the Tao prevails, when things are in balance, fast war horses are retired, they're out peacefully fertilizing the fields, harmony, productivity.
Nice image.
But when the world lacks the Tao, war horses are giving birth right there on the battlefield. Misery, conflict, devastation.
Ugh, stark contrast.
And the message is crystal clear. No crime greater than greed, no disaster greater than discontentment. True, lasting satisfaction comes from contentment, knowing what's enough, not endless chasing.
Which ties into Chapter 48, another paradox. Learning versus pursuing the Tao. We think learning is always gain, right?
We do.
Cool.
Accumulating knowledge seems like progress, but this chapter flips it. It says, pursue knowledge, daily gain. Pursue Tao, daily loss.
Daily loss, how does that work?
When you pursue knowledge, you add complexity, facts, often more desires. But pursuing the Tao is a path of shedding. Daily loss of complexity, simplifying, letting go of attachments, reducing desires.
And this gradual letting go leads to what's called wu-wei, often translated as non-action, but maybe better as unattached action. And through this wu-wei, paradoxically, it says, nothing one cannot do.
So by doing less or acting without attachment, you actually achieve more, become more capable.
That's the idea, effortless action.
Which links perfectly to Chapter 76 and 78, the whole soft overcomes the hard idea.
Exactly. Think about living things. They're soft, pliable. When they die, they become hard, rigid.
Right.
A stiff branch breaks in the wind. A rigid army is brittle. But water, the softest thing,
Carves canyons through rock.
Precisely. So being yielding, flexible, adaptable, that's immense strength, not weakness. Trying to meet force with force often just creates more conflict. As it says, the one who accepts the world's difficulties can truly lead it. The truth in the Tao often seems like the exact opposite of what we normally assume.
This wisdom is just incredible. But we know translating ancient Chinese is really tricky. So why did someone like Derek Lin feel a new translation was needed? What challenges was he addressing?
Well, ancient Chinese is very different from modern Chinese, and the original texts didn't have punctuation, which can obviously lead to very different readings.
Right, ambiguity.
Exactly. And Lin noticed that many translations tended to blend Lao Tzu's original words with the translator's own interpretations, which is fine, but it makes it hard for a reader, especially a serious student, to know what's original and what's commentary.
So how did he approach it differently to get more clarity, more fidelity?
He really went back to basics. He had native fluency in both languages, which is key. But crucially, he spent years consulting ancient Chinese commentaries, basically, notes from scholars much closer to Lao Tzu's time, showing how they understood it.
Ah, like going back to the earliest interpretations.
Yes, and he also sought guidance from living Taoist masters, people practicing within the I Kuan Tao lineage. So it wasn't just academic. He wanted to verify the meaning through actual practice and lived experience. Authenticity was the goal.
And the format he used is pretty unique, right? Separating the literal translation from his own notes.
It's revolutionary, really. It makes it totally transparent. You, the reader, can clearly see, okay, this is the literal rendering of Lao Tzu's words, and this is the translator's explanation or insight.
That gives the reader a lot more power, I guess,
Yeah.
to judge for themselves.
Immense power. It makes it an incredibly faithful, really empowering way to engage with the text.
Can you give us a couple of quick examples how these translation insights make a difference, like even just how we say the name?
Sure. Okay, pronunciation first. The common spelling Tao uses an older system. It's actually pronounced Dao, like in Dow Jones.
Okay, Tao.
So Tao to Ching is really Dao to Jing in the modern pinyin system. Good to know.
Tao Te Ching. Got it. What else?
Well, chapter 1 again, that phrase wooming, some translate it as like non-existence, but if you read it holistically, looking at how terms are used across the whole book, nameless makes much more sense. It refers to that ultimate ineffable origin we talked about.
Okay. Consistent meaning across the text. And what about the famous uncarved block? I hear that's not quite right.
Yes, the uncarved block. Classic example. The actual term pu just means plain wood, or maybe simple wood.
What's the difference? Seems subtle.
It's philosophically huge. Plain wood represents original simplicity, raw potential, untouched by human intervention. But an uncarved block implies someone already cut it from a tree, right? It sneakily introduces human action where the point is natural simplicity.
Huh. Never thought of it that way. Changes the feel. And wu wei, we said unattached action.
Right? Often translated simply as non-action, which is super misleading.
Yeah, it sounds passive.
It's not about doing nothing. Detached action or acting without attachment captures it better. Acting spontaneously, effortlessly, without ego, without trying to force outcomes.
Okay. And one more. Te. Usually virtue.
Yeah, and virtue is actually pretty good, but it's important to know it has a dual meaning. It's both human goodness, like integrity, and the inherent power or natural quality within all things, like the virtue of a plant is to grow. So virtue covers both nicely.
So much nuance.
Definitely. Ultimately, a good translation of a text like this should be like a clear mirror. Aiming for fidelity, yes, but also serving as both inspiration and a really practical guide for your own path. Hashtag tag tag outro.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, it's just so clear that the Tao Te Ching holds this incredible depth, this really practical wisdom. It feels remarkably relevant, actually. A timeless guide for navigating, well, life today.
It really does. And remembering Lao Tzu's words to Yinxi make it alive through practice.
Right.
And thinking about that forest and mountain analogy, this whole discussion is a reminder that you are constantly right now shaping your own Tao through existence.
Thinking about that, what does this all mean for you listening right now? Maybe consider where in your life might you be overfilling the cup or sharpening the blade too much?
Like Lao Tzu warns against in chapter 9.
Yeah. Maybe in work, relationships, even how you learn things. What would stopping short actually look like for you in that specific area?
Or think about a problem you're facing, something that feels really hard or resistant. How could you try adopting the soft, the yielding quality of water we talked about from chapter 78?
Could shifting to that flexible approach change things? Maybe lead to a breakthrough?
It's worth considering.
And finally, remember chapter 64. A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath your feet. Forget the whole mountain for a second. What's the very first, maybe tiny, simple step you could take today on your own journey towards a bit more harmony, a bit more contentment based on something we've touched on?
Just one small step.
We really hope this deep dive has given you plenty to ponder and maybe a slightly different lens to view your own path through that forest.